Okay, so this is a tutorial for Autodesk MatchMover. Um, Same applies really pretty much to all of them, but I'm working in 2012 on this one. Okay, today I'm going to look at facial tracking um, because a lot of people seem to want to do facial tracking in MatchMover, and there's not a lot of this out there. Um, so first off, let's load in our image sequence. Now an image sequence is pretty much what it says if you don't usually work with image sequences. It's just a sequence of images. Where's mine? See, mine's on my desktop. And tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to use my first camera. You've got a couple of options down here. If you haven't filmed in a progressive frame rate like 720p or whatever p, and you filmed in interlace like 720i or 576i or whatever it is, tell it what field, upper or lower, that you've interlaced on that. Some things you bring in will have an alpha channel, and some cameras will film an alpha channel, and you can bring that in and use that as a mat as well, but for this it's not really necessary. Then we come down to the camera settings. We tell MatchMover whether or not we've panned, it's been dollied, or it's moving in a diagonal way. So for me, this camera's fixed, and it asks for the frame rate. So for me, this is at 50 frames a second. I would advise anybody, if you can, to do it at 50 frames a second, because it really does, well, it pretty much halves the motion blur, which makes automatic tracking tracking for MatchMover a lot easier. If you do know what it is, your focal length, whether or not you changed focus or how much it changed focus, then you can tell it in here. You can also go into further details if you want, and if you need to tell it how big your images are, then you can do that here. But anyway, so all you need to do is select your first image, and it will then load them all in. So as you can see in here, I've got, oh god, what have I got in here? 1,133 frames. Right. Now normally, for certain things like object replacement and things like that, I've seen a lot of things on the internet of people using automatic tracking, which is kind of okay, but it's not really necessary or the best for doing this sort of tracking. By the way, these track marks are, as you see, sharply marked, and I don't recommend it. Although in this instance, because there is quite a bit of light, they have tracked okay. I still wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend using just try anything that makes a mark. Try it, see how it works. It's a trial and error thing. Okay, so first things first, let's make ourselves right-click on point tracks and give ourselves a new group. And up here on the right-hand side, we will label this group actor. Okay, and then we'll go up here and we'll give ourselves a new 2D track. So first off, let's go with the nose tip. So I bring the crosshair up to the nose tip, click and it gives me an automatic zoom, get it exactly where I want it, and it takes it in. Now, I can't really show you this, but inside here is a green box, this little box in the middle, and a blue box on the outside. Now the blue box is where MatchMover is going to look its boundary for that point. So if it moves out of this boundary, it will stop looking for it. The green one is its main search area. Now if you make these massive, it can either be good or it can be bad. Sometimes you'll get amazing tracks doing that, but it will take a long time. Or it will just be terrible and it will jump from pixel to pixel on the screen and be absolutely awful. But anyway, for this just works on standard size. So now go ahead and hit F3 or come up to here to 2D tracking and track forward, which you see there, shortcut is F3. So select track 1 and track it forwards. It gives you this lovely little tracking monitor, which you pretty much every time you set a track going, a supervised track, you need to do as it says and supervise this, because you will see it jump from place to place and it will go wrong eventually. This is why matchmoving is an absolute pig. Okay, so this has given us quite a clean track. If you look on this, it's mostly green, bits of yellow, but you know, we've got a mostly green track there. And in the track monitor, I was happy with how it moved. So let's just go ahead and call this the nose tip. Right, and under here, you'll see that this is a hard track. It's used for 3D solving, and it will be reconstructed in 3D. Now, the only way you can build 3D points, so when you click the 3D button up in this corner, and use your Alt, pretty much your Maya keys to navigate around in here, you'll see that I've only got 2D point here so far. And if I move around, you know, I haven't got any. If anyone's used MatchMover before, you know, you get the blue cones. I haven't got any of those here yet. So that means this will be used for it. But how do we take 2D data like this, a simple track of this going up and down and left and right? How do we take that into 3D data? Well, you need to film from more than one angle. So for this here, I'm just going to rename this sequence from the bin here, and I'm going to call this one global, or front on, whatever you want to call your first one. Then I'm going to go up to here to load sequence again, or you can go to file, load sequence, and I'm going to go upper folder. The better arranged your files are in this, the easier it will make life for you, because you can end up with a lot of files out of MatchMover, and if they are in one place and they are labeled correctly, you will find them. So I'm going to go ahead with camera A, which should be filming the right hand side of my actor's face. So again, this one's fixed, 50 frames a second, no interlace, and it's the right size. There we are. Okay. And then this one here, I'm going to give it camera A. Oh. Camera A. Okay. So now I've got two separate things, and you notice when I click between them, nothing's really happening. And obviously, if you double click them in there, it disappears your toolbar off the right hand side. But what you will see is, if you remember before, we had 1,100 and whatever frames. It's up to this line here, and then once you come past this line, it starts again. Now, what MatchMover does is the amount of sequences you bring in, it will divide them like this, and it will make your second sequence start at frame 1000 whatever. So what you've got to tell it is, this global camera, I'm going to synchronize it at frame 0, and then I'm going to press Control and page down, which takes me to the very start of my next image sequence. And then again, in here I'm going to select camera A, which this is one it's filmed from, and I'm going to tell this one that it's synchronized at frame 0. So now it knows that those frames start at 0. So now the computer knows, MatchMover knows that these sequences both start at 0 and run at the same time. What you will get down here is you'll get this little circle kind of icon on the film strip. When you turn the synchronization off, it goes away and comes back. So that's how you know you've got it synchronized. It's not 100% important to actually synchronize your images until you come to solving the camera. If you don't do it when you solve the camera, it can cause a couple of issues, but it's not too bad a problem. Okay, so again, control page down, take me to my second image sequence, and I'm going to select the track we just made, which was nose tip, and you remember it's the one we put on the nose tip, and I'm going to come to here and I'm going to find the same track from this camera, which is there. And again, I'm going to press, as you can see, it's given the line that we had before of the nose tip. So if we go back a sequence, you know, it's right there in the center screen, and when I go back, it's still in the same place. So then I hit F3 again, track forwards, and it will track this nose tip very slowly, but it will track it anyway. Now what this is doing is this is giving MatchMover a reference point almost. It's telling it from two different angles, this is how it moves. And what MatchMover will do is it will try and take an average and a midpoint between the two, or 3 or 4, depending on how many angles you've done it from, and it will give you a nice solid track. If you film from one angle, you can still solve 3D data. You just have to build a coordinate system within here yourself, which isn't too bad. And if you do come into MatchMover and hit up help, contents, or just hit F1, it will open up your web browser and give you the help guide that will show you how to build a coordinate system within this, which can be very helpful, especially for object replacement and stuff like that. So now we've got 2 tracks that can be seen from both the camera, and pretty much there's no, I'm not going to change much in this as this is only a demo really, but if I scan through this, there is no red tracks, which is generally a good thing. Red tracks are a problem, and you don't really ever want a red track, and I'm sure we'll get one in a minute, and I'll show you what to do with that. So just one quick thing I want to show you down here in your bottom right of your screen is MatchMover's cache. In your preferences, you can tell MatchMover how much RAM it can have for its cache, or how much memory it can use for its cache even. And it's got this lovely color semicircle that the more you use it, and the more, if I play through, majority of the time you can just watch the cache go up when you play through high quality image sequences. And as you can see, it changes colors, going orangey and get into the red stage. Now, when it becomes full, like that, MatchMover can't really handle, well it can, but it can't do complicated operations as quick as it could before. It can't track as quickly as it did before, it can't be as nice to use as before. So, all you do is when you keep looking down every so often and you see your cache, just every so often press Control, Delete, and it will empty your cache, and you can see it's taking it back down to 3.52 megabyte that it uses as standard anyway. There is something up here somewhere to actually delete the cache itself, but the shortcut for it is Control Delete. I don't know where it is. Edit flush cache is Control Delete. Right, so that's given us. So we got that. That's all in done. So now what you want to do is you want to go between your 2 sequences and find more tracks that can be seen by both cameras and track them and label them appropriately. I'm going to skip ahead and do that so you don't have to watch all of that, and then we'll pick it up again in a second. Okay, so this is part 2 of the MatchMover tutorial. So as you can see, I've tracked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points on this phase. I haven't tracked them all because I'm just showing this through, but so I've tracked 8 points on both sequences, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and they're all labelled down here. I can't explain the importance of actually naming. I myself am terrible for it, but I can't explain how important it can be in this to name properly. This is named terribly, but when you get stuck with a bit of footage that you end up having, over 100 points to track on the face per side, or something ridiculous like that, or you have to track, 400 points in the background manually, naming convention can become very, very important, especially when you move it out into your 3D package, because, for instance, when I move this into Maya, that's going to take the same naming convention, and if I have got over 300 tracks, I need a way of how to find a certain track, because they just come in as locators, so to try and find them is going to be a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, don't forget, control page up and down is your switch between sequences. So now we've got this track, and this is working. We can actually now do, just check we're still synchronized, which we are. We can now actually do what's called the camera solve. Now a camera solve in MatchMover needs a minimum of 7 reference points. So these are what they mean by reference points, across at least 2 image sequences. Now if you'd filmed this from 8 or 9 different angles, and you could build the nose tip out of 9 different angles, you're pretty much going to get an absolutely solid, really nice track out of that. But don't forget, it's not always about how many cameras you can film it off and how many points you can track. It's how well you can actually track those points. Like obviously in this, if you play through it, that looks, you think, oh, that's tracked fine, that's lovely. If you actually slow that right down and have a look and play it through frame by frame with those locators on, and you see the amount of movement within that point. I mean, if you look at it on the left hand side in the magnified view over here, you can see how much area pretty much in this black dot it's got to move in, because it's searching for it in that box. So But if you make your tracks too small, you're not going to be able to pin a locator to it, so it can become quite a challenge and can be quite irritating. But once you've got that and the track's all green, I've got a bit of red in that one, which I'm not too happy about. When was that? About 1,700 and something. We're here. What's this on? This is on the corner of the mouth. So when you find yourself with a red track, I do recommend fixing it. And trust me, from time to time you'll be working with your screen this big, and pages and pages of tracks. I've been there. It can become a nightmare to go through it and fix all the red and go for green. So my only advice I can give is to do the red tracks as you're going along. It becomes less tedious and it becomes easier to work with, and isn't so, I don't know, it doesn't make it so boring, because once you've got one solid track, it gives you a bit of motivation to go on to the next one. Right, so basically what it means is it's saying, I'm green, I'm a bit yellow, I'm a bit confused, I'm red, I'm really lost, I've come off the track and I have no idea where I am. And then after that, in a couple frames later, it says I'm fine, I'm back on, I'm green. Usually when you get a red track, it does mean it's come off and it's got lost. But in this instance, because this track is right in the corner of our actor's mouth, what it's doing is, as he talks through, the shadow and the light is changing on that specific part of his mouth. And as that is changing, the contrast in the pixels is changing, which is starting to confuse this particular locator. So it's a simple thing of, you look up here, and it is irritating that you can't navigate with this bit of the timeline. You have to use this bit down the bottom. So we look up here and we look, we're about 1,709. So we get here to about 1,709, and we're on it. And that's where our frame rating is. And that's where, so we have to navigate on this bottom frame bar, timeline, and whatever you want to call it. Okay, so once we get to the frame, so we're at the first bit of the red. I do recommend starting at the first bit of the red. Don't just start in the middle and try to track back and forward, because it just start at the beginning, because you can just cause problems and make more work for yourself. So we go to the start. We come over to our magnified view, where we can actually see where it is, and we're just going to click roughly where we think it is. And what it's done is it's put this little black diamond down the bottom here. And what this says is, it says to MatchMover, pretty much the same way as it does in any package like this, is it puts keyframe there. And yes, it's the dreaded keyframes again. No matter where you go, you'll never get away from it. But anyway, it puts this little black diamond down there. What it's telling you is, I'm here. On this specific frame, I'm at these exact coordinates. Now, this is actually very, very helpful in a way that if you are tracking something in the background, like for instance, I'm going to track later on one of these points back here. As soon as I click on it and I define the coordinates in 2D where it is on one of the tracks, at the beginning of the image sequence and at the end, I can put those exact coordinates in and can set a keyframe there. And then it will track between those coordinates, and because those coordinates are exactly the same, that track will not move, and that track will be as static as it can be. Depending, you can change the threshold and things, and you can kind of give some tolerances, and you can change a few things in here, but generally it will stay pretty much solid to that point. But once we've got this keyframe on, and as you can see, the rest of the green on this specific track on the right mouth corner has disappeared. Right to the end, it's gone, but back, it's one word there, back, it's here. So once I'm here, I'm just going to hit F3 again, and it's going to track forwards. Still monitoring that up here on the track monitor. And I come forward, I come through, and I'm yellow. Got a bit more red here, it's about 1960 something there. So, I'm going to just go here. Use this one up here. You can use control and the right arrow key to go between frames. Once you learn shortcuts in this, it does become a lot quicker process. Got a big bar of red there. Now, this is when match moving can become a pain, because although if I look at here, to me that looks like it's in place fine, because of the difference in pixel contrast, MatchMover thinks it's lost the point. And sadly, it is one of those times when you have to go through the entire thing and pretty much babysit it until you get it off the red. You can, don't get me wrong, you can solve with red bits in the track, and sometimes it's not too much of a problem. But if you really are going for a high quality and you want to get work out that is of high quality, then I do recommend going through this and giving yourself good tracks, because it will benefit you a lot later on, especially if you use this data to then drive something. Then it will benefit in a lot of ways. Where was those last red bits there? Okay, so I've got a couple more frames here of red, which we're just going to quickly get rid of. So it stayed on. We lost it about here. So at 1, 6. Come here. There we go. Alright, so we'll track it forward, and now on that track I've got all green and yellow on all the tracks. One more thing I just want to point out really quickly is, say we just go to frame, I don't know, 600 on our first sequence, and we're going to select the nose tip. Now if you look in here, these lines, these track lines, this line over here is from the other image sequence, this is obviously from this one, and if you follow the track line roughly with your mouse cursor, I've got a big circle kind of thing, and if I look on the other one, that big circle's there as well. Now I'm not saying these lines should be identical, but you should be able to make out very similar shapes between them, and basically what that's saying is, when I look between the two, is that from these two different camera angles, MatchMover has got very, very similar point movement, which means that it's reading the same data, it's reading the same track, and etc, etc. It's doing what it should be doing. If you get two completely horrific different shapes, then chances are, like this one here, big at the bottom, chances are if you get two different shapes that something's gone horribly wrong, and in the monitor, in between one frame, it's jumped between track and track. Now that can be a problem when you've, say you've got 40 track markers on the cheek, which would be mad, but say you had it. When it's tracking, after you set your supervised track up and you set it going, I can almost guarantee that when the actor moves their face, it will jump from track to track, because the pixel contrast will be very similar, and MatchMover, remember that little box? As one of those other ones come into the box, MatchMover will then think that's the point and it will jump to it. Which is not a problem, because all you got to do is go back and set it on the right track. But as you can imagine, even for this 1000 frames, which is, I don't know however long this is, you don't want to be going through every 30 frames saying, oh, I've got red there, put it through, oh, gotta stop, oh, blah blah blah. You don't want to be doing that. You really want smooth sailing, and as long as you cover the basis of the tracking, you can, again, if this is going over an animated character, you can keyframe animate over the top, using animation layers or whatever, and whatever package you use, you can pretty much animate over the top of this as well. And because don't for a second think that you're going to get seriously realistic looking facial animation from just motion tracking. Avatar, they didn't just, well, I'm assuming they didn't just do motion capture like this. There's a lot of work gone into it afterwards, a lot of cleanup and a lot of after work on it. But this gives you pretty much the best fundamental building block of realistic movement you can have, which is natural head movement. You get natural anticipation, you get natural lip speaking, you get natural cheek movement, you get the head moves in a natural way, which is something that in animation is something that can be quite difficult to do. And don't forget, in this you can track more than just the face. You could be tracking the body, you could be tracking anything. So don't just think this is for facial tracking, this applies to everything. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get this moving data solved so we can use it for something else. So what we're going to do is, after we've checked, we're all green and we're all happy in here, we're going to go up to 3D scene, 3D tracking even, and we're going to hit solve for camera, shortcut F9. Now what this will do is this skedaddles through both sequences and it selects all the keyframes, and all the coordinate points of where these tracks are. It calculates the mid-range, it calculates the movement. This is quite an important step. Your initial camera solve, which is your first one like this, can be brilliant or it can be terrible. It can really be disheartening, especially if you've had to do 50, 60 tracks and this comes out, and if you look down the left hand side of the screen in the bin down here, these at the moment are all grey, which means they haven't been solved. After the solve, if they come up red, you know your solve's not very good. It means you've got a lot of pretty much wrong movement in the track points, and it's not going to be happy with it. You're going to get some weird movement. There'll be locators jiggling about, and you need to get, ideally if everything's green, you're going to get a nice solve, but it can be weeks and weeks of work to get everything green, and especially when you're working on a big scene or more than one scene, then you know you're talking a lot of man hours. So I'm actually going to cut the video here just while this is solving, because I'm running out of things to talk about. So I'll pick it up again in just a second. Okay, so here we are, back again with our solved points. And as you can see now, we've got this red circle with a line that's joined to where our points are. And what you'll notice as you switch between is, like, that locator then becomes the red circle, that circle becomes the locator. It's just a reference between the two, and it's also a reference to 3D data. So now we've got our wonderful move-in stuff. So we'll go into our 3D view, use Alt and the right mouse button, and we'll move around, and here are these little triangular things, these cone-shaped things, which are 3D data. So if we play through, but as you'll see, they're not moving, which isn't really helpful, meaning that we want to get this track data out as moving. And this is fine if we're doing something, you know, like object replacement or anything. This is fine, but for what we want to do, we want to use this moving data, and that's not helpful. And you'll notice that our solve is also red. Now, this is actually a very simple solution that I overlooked at one point. So what you need is a background reference. You need more than one background reference. So these points have something to move off of that they know is static. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our actor folder. Just save this real quick. Stage 2. Right, we're going to come over to our actor folder under our point tracks, select it, come up to here, and in the options we're going to change the motion from static to non-rigid motion capture. And it just basically means that the movement is smooth organic movement and not like a piston flying up and down in an engine, you know, which would be a rigid motion. So now that we've changed that, this will need a resolve, but we can do that in a minute once we've done our new point tracks. So we'll select our point tracks again, new group, and I'm just going to quickly label this one BG reference, right? And I'm going to click, it's going to put it straight away under actor. So I'm going to drag it to the bottom. Well, I'm going to drag it into point tracks so it becomes not the same point. Let's go into there, get out. Let's just drag it into actor. Right, sorry. So that was my fault, by the way. The points were the wrong way around. The points weren't in the actor folder. So make sure that your points are in your folder you make for your actor. And because of that, I forgot that is going to need another resolve. But again, we can do that after we've done our background references. Okay, so what we need to do is go between, using control, page up and page down. We need to go between our two image sequences and work out in the background, you know, what can I see in both cameras? Well, what I can see is I can see the very corner of this poster, and believe it or not, yes, this will track that. So you know, I'm going to hit F3, and you know, you're going to look at that. That's hardly moving. It gives you its coordinates here: 2117, 2167. This is flashing between 16, and this is flashing between what it looks like 68-ish something. So I'm not really worried about that, because you know, to move 0.01 of whatever units MatchMover uses, I'm not really worried about that. If it was moving a lot more, then I would. Now you'll notice straight away that as we have already done an initial camera solve, this has gone immediately green because it was such a smooth track. It's had no worries, so it has gone immediately green. And MatchMover is now going to tell you that that is 3D data, but obviously we know that it's not because we haven't tracked it on this side yet. So using control page down, we'll go here and select the same point, hit F3, and let it run and track that piece. Hopefully this won't take too long. Another thing is, if you're filming from cameras, it can be filming from more than 2 cameras. It can become quite complicated in here. You need to make sure that you can pretty much see every single point from every camera. Maybe with the exception of 1 or 2, but the more points you can see in this, MatchMover is going to make your life a lot easier then. It will hate you for not giving it enough points to move off of, etc, etc. But anyway, so let's just drag that track into our background reference, and we'll do a couple more. So we'll put one up here. Let's let that run through. A lot of people do have their own workflow of working through MatchMover. You know, some people like to place the tracks first and track them later. Me personally, I like to place a track and let it run and see if that's something that's worth tracking or not. But everyone has their own way. So if this way doesn't work for you, then you know, take something from this and work out your own pipeline for it. It's a time-consuming job, so do it how you feel comfortably. Because, okay, this might be a problem. Because as you can see in this magnifying monitor, the corner of his ear might come into this. If he moves his head back or to the right, it's going to cause a problem. So let's just watch the tracking monitor. And I'm going to guess that he's going to get in the way somewhere. There it is. Did you see that? His ear moved back, and because it did, the shadow caused the locator monitor to actually move, which is a problem. Now, I can either go through, fix that, and find the frames, which I'm just going to show you how to do that quickly. So we'll just find the frame. I'm looking in the magnifier on the left hand side of the screen. I'm going to move this, slide this one forward, going through it, until I find the bit where his ear has crossed the path and pushed it back, which is about here. As you can see, it's pushing it around and moving it. Okay, so let's say that's going from frame, what are we on here, 1559, and it's going through to, and it's solid again there. So I'm going to select the difference between these here. I'm going to right click, and I'm not sure why that selected all of them, but only as long as this track's selected, it should only apply it to this. And I'm going to go set frames, do not solve. Now what that will do is it will pretty much tell it that it's gone out of distance. We can't see it, it's not good, don't use that, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much saying not to use it. I'm actually going to delete the track because it wasn't worth using. There's plenty of other things to track. I'm not making life hard for myself. So deleted that one out. Let's just have a look where else we can get. I think we can get the top of the K in UK. So let's just go to the top corner there, run that through. And again, my cache is getting quite high, so after the track's finished, I will delete that. Let's see, come on. Your tracking will get slower the more full your cache becomes, so it does help to keep an eye on your cache. And this, you know, I'm not doing this on a powerful machine. This is on just a home-built machine. Nothing powerful. It's, you know, automatically it's given itself 2 gig of memory to use as a cache, so it's not a lot. And to be honest, for the majority of stuff you end up doing in MatchMover, it doesn't become that labor intensive for the computer. Obviously when you got more than 100 tracks in here and you're working with them a lot, there's a lot of keyframes, there's a lot of solving going on. It then can be, the solving is the bit that becomes labor intensive for the computer, so sometimes be prepared for long waiting times for a solve. Right, let's just see what else we can see. Do one more. Where else can we go? Okay, we can go to the top corner of this blue box. So let's go top corner of that blue box there. Let's give that a track. Crosses are very good as markers. Very good as markers for tracking. I've used it before for doing object replacement or putting things in a scene that aren't normally there. Like I put a Apache gunship helicopter on my coffee table, and I did a couple of other things just playing around with it. But crosses do make fantastic track markers, but for this I just wanted to try circles because I haven't tried them before. So again, it's one of those things you just trial and error, and hopefully you'll get the desired result. Okay, so we've got our actor folder full of our actor tracks and our background reference full of our background tracks. I'm going to select the background reference folder and make sure that the motion is on none static points. Okay, let's just do a quick save while we're here. So we'll call this one stage 3. Okay, so we're on none static points for our background reference. Now, because they don't move, when this is resolved, this should give these markers, as it knows that these are free motion ones, these are free moving, it can say, right, if you're moving left, I'll let you move left because this is static and I know how far you're moving that way. Before, all MatchMover could do was track where it was going and give you a midpoint of where it moved all over. Between the two tracks, it could give you a midpoint of all its movement. But now it's got a reference to go off of. It can give you that midpoint for every frame, and it can show you through. It can show you the movement on every frame. So we're quickly going to do another solve, which is F9. This should take a bit quicker as we have already done one solve, but don't take my word for that. Sometimes solving is quick, sometimes it's fast. I don't know who makes up the rules for solving. As it's only got 3 keys really to solve, but it has got to solve the movement of the actor tracks again. I have actually filmed this from 3 cameras, and I haven't actually managed to get the data of the 3 cameras out because I'm having a lot out of MatchMover anyway, because I'm having a lot of trouble with not being able to see them all. But anyway, okay, so we've got our background reference and we've got this, and yeah, it gave us 2 yellow tracks, which is good, which means that's got okay movement. Now obviously if I went through this and I put, you know, about 300-400 keyframes on this, it would give me, all these would be green, but for this purposes of this I'm not going to do that. So now we're going to go up to this 3D button again and hit that and use Alt and the right mouse button and go through. Now what we've got is we've got these yellow cones with a spiral of marks around them. So when we play it through now, we can see these yellow cones moving, which is nice because that's what we wanted. And right back here in the far distance is our background markers. So it's obviously, you know, that's not too bad. If I was looking at there and saying everything's scaled down to the size, I'd say there's about 1.5 meters distance between those two, which, you know, wouldn't be far off. Maybe it's a bit closer to the actor than it was in the actual shoot, but, you know, that's not bad. Now, you know, it can be quite hard to actually see what you've got when you look at this data, because these squiggles can be so big and these cones can move around like, you know, like no tomorrow, and it can be quite confusing to look at. You think, oh god, that's just gone terribly wrong and that's not what I wanted at all. But there is really only one way to see that. So what we're going to do is, whilst this is all synchronized and all done, we've done the solve, so I'm just going to do another quick save. I'll save over that one then. Yeah, save that. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to select the point tracks folder. Now this is important. When you export, if you do not select your point tracks folder or select the certain tracks you want to export, it will export nothing and it will make you feel like you've done no work. And it can be irritating when, if you don't know little things like that, that you don't understand why your work's not coming out and what you've done wrong. Bear in mind these are red and 2 yellow solves, so this isn't great, but no, it'll do for now. So let's go to export. You can export this in a couple of ways. Where's my desktop? Sorry, I'm a Mac user and the Windows file thing confuses me. Okay, so we're in our tutorial folder. Go to file type. Okay, this has got a lot of presets in it. I've recently started using Softimage XSI, which, to be honest, I think if that was my native software that I first started using, I'd love it, but it's very difficult to go from Maya to Softimage because they're totally different, and Maya is my native program, so unfortunately I'm not big. But I have taken this data into XSI using this VB script, so I do know that does work. And I'll show in a second how to a couple of ways of getting the data into Softimage. We can save it as a .ma to get this data into Maya, or if you're a 3D Studio Max, you know there's a .ms. You can take this straight into Shake or into Combustion if need be. You can export this in FBX if you want that high quality data. FBX can be a bit of a problem to export as is, but as long as your data is clean, you can get it out. So there's a lot of, and there's some random formats like RZML, which I've never used, and RZ3 and RZ2. I've never used any of these, but anyway. And Cinema 4D. A lot of people use Cinema 4D, so you can take it out to there. So first off, let's just see how we take it out to Maya. So in the folder, just select Maya. We're going to call it Maya Export. Now we can either animate the camera, which means the solved camera that comes out of this, which will be taken off of the global cam because that's the main camera that is in this. We can export the camera, and the points can move to. The points will be static, and the camera will try and move to match the points. But we don't want that really. We want the whole scene animated. So we select scene, and what that means is the camera will be static and the points will move, which is what we want, which will be fine. So yeah, we're going to export the camera anyway, so we can look through it, so we can get, if we need to, we can check the distance between these points of what MatchMover thinks the distance between the lens and the point tracks are. We'll take the distortion grid and obviously the 3D points. Point scale. This is pretty much as it says on the tin. At the moment it's set to 1, so when you bring this into Maya, if you just create a locator in Maya, they'll be the same size as, because the standard is 1. If you were doing object replacement and you were on a background scene that was, your shot was 600-700 feet long, I would recommend you make your point scale a bit bigger, because you can always see the center of a locator easily, and if your shot is really far away, then I'd make it bigger. Just make life easier for yourself. You won't have to keep flying through the scene, you won't have to keep finding things, and you can click it in the viewport rather than have to go through the outliner and all sorts. But anyway, so we'll leave the point scale as 1 and first frame index as 1. So we'll save that. Saves really quickly. So now I'm just going to do a quick cut in the video while I open Maya. So I will stop. Okay, as soon as my screen stops glitching out, why is MatchMover open again? Oh, I opened it twice, that's why. Right. So that was my mistake. Right, let's open up Maya. Let's see what it gives us. Now you can do this one or two ways. You can go to the folder where you saved the export from MatchMover and double click it and open it, or my personal way is I like to actually import it once Maya's already open, just so, because sometimes if you have got a massive load of track data, it can take a while to load it up rather than just load it in. Okay, so I'm just going to go File, Open. Let's go to the desktop and go to our tutorial folder, Maya Export, and open it. No, save it. Right. So what you'll see this is given us is it's given us both image sequences, which is a bit weird. I've never actually seen it do that, which is fun. And it's given us a camera and point tracks. So what you'll see it's done is it's kind of had a bit of a funny 5 minutes. Let me just set this to the right play speed, because it's already on there. Get on, babe. Right. So it's exported us a camera like we asked it to, which is here. It'll be called Real Viz or RZ camera. So let's just look through that one. It gives us this thing. And if we play this, there's no locators really. And there's no movement. But you know, I can see a background locator there. That's what I mean about the scale 1, their standard mark size. So let's go back to our perspective view. And I've just noticed it's given us another camera. So let's look through RZ camera 2. Now this is for the other one. We'll take it back to the beginning and play it through again. And again, these are background locators. So as these are actually set to 1 and these are standard sizes, you can see the confusion that MatchMover has because of how not great the solves were. We know, looking at this, that these 3 points are roughly the same distance away from the camera. Okay, this one's a bit further away, but you know, they're on the same poster at least. And what Maya has done is it actually thinks that this, looking at the size of it, is this much closer than that one there. So this is what it means to have really good tracks, and if you have the time to go through, build your own coordinate system in MatchMover, and pretty much give it all the data you can give it, it will then give you some wonderful tracks. So none of those cameras are helpful to us really, but if we come back here, I've got a random cluster of locators. So you know, I don't need these image planes, so let's just delete these out. I've got some locators here, so let's play it back and see what they do. Oh, we've got movement. Okay. It's done that really horrible thing that MatchMover has done to me lots of times. It's actually brought my data in upside down. As you can see, the mouth is up the top here, moving and talking. And the brow is down here, which is, you know, not really helpful to have your data upside down, especially as it's keyframe animated on everyone, and if you try and move it, it will just revert itself back to there. So let's just close this. I don't want to save this. And we'll open MatchMover back up, and we'll do another export. We'll animate the camera this time, just see if that goes wrong. Maya export Camex. So let's just see how well that does. So let's open up Maya again. Okay. Okay, let's open up Maya. Sorry, open up what we just exported with the camera export. Now hopefully this could be a little... Okay, now we got one upside down and one in, so it does do some crazy things. Let's look through camera 1. Okay, so let's look through this, and you know, so exporting the camera this time did work. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it is a nightmare. Now, pour this, it's trying to play this at 50 frames a second with an image sequence behind it, we don't want that. So I'm just going to delete these out because we don't need them here for this. Again, what it does is it actually does delete the cameras with that, and I don't need, I'm not referencing this to anything, so I don't actually need the 3 background markers we made, so I'm going to delete them. I just need or want to see this face data. So now that's the right way up, and if we look at it, and we take it back to the beginning, and it plays through, yay, we got some movement, look. So the mouth is here, corner of the mouth, the top lip, the bottom lip, this is the nose tip, this is the orbital of the face, the ear, and the eyebrows. So what we've successfully done now is we've taken this data out of here into Maya. So I suppose you could use this for pretty much loads of different things. I mean, you know, if you created a sphere, so let's make a sphere. Where's my grid gone? Let's make a sphere. God damn it, make a sphere. Right. Let's make a sphere. We don't want it that big. Let's move it about quickly. So say we're doing a weird scene where there's I don't know, something strange talking to someone out of a mirror or something, but they've got a strange face that's made of shapes. Yeah, that's where my ideas come from. So what we can do is we can select our locator and select our object that we're going to put there. Go up under the animation tab, we'll go up to constrain, and we'll do a point constraint. And what it will do is it will say, right, wherever the locator moves, the ball moves. So then you could start to build some crazy things out of this. And in theory, yes, you could drive with a bit of work. You could drive a face, or an actual already rigged face off of this. Um, what would be a problem though is it would drag the controls for it around, um, rather than moving it as a face. If at one point when this head goes down like that, the whole head wouldn't move down. It would just pull the lips, it would just pull everything off the rig basically. So let's just, we're making some odd shape thing. So this guy, he's chatting away, he's having a good time, he's talking. So this is one way you can use the data in Maya, and yes, in theory you can use it to drive a rig, and I'm sure there's some really clever people out there who know how to do it, but sadly I don't. So we'll just save this just in case we want to come back to it, and we'll save this in a new folder as Maya. We'll save it in there as version 1. Okay. What you might have just seen there, if that wasn't too quick, is I saved this as a Maya ASCII, or ASCII as I call it, and not as a Maya binary. The reason I save it as Maya ASCII is if for whatever reason your Maya file, if you're working on a very complicated scene, or you're having to transfer data, so I'm gonna have to take this from my home PC to my studio, then if I transfer the data, sometimes you'll find that things can be a problem and things can become corrupt. And if you've just travelled, 2 hours to get to your studio or whatever, you don't want to have to drive back to get it again and go forward. So what Maya ASCII, with a lot of research into it, what you can do if you do a lot of research into it is you can go in to the actual edit of the file and salvage your data. But it's something to bear in mind if you start working on complicated stuff. Okay, so what else can we do with this? Well, we can export it again, and this time we're going to export it as, where should we take it? Let's take it, okay, we're going to save it in motion analysis.trc. We're going to call this one motion, and we'll save this. Okay, what you will have noticed in that is in TRC you don't get the option to animate the camera or the scene. You don't get the option to take the cameras or a distortion grid, because what this does is all it takes is the 2D movement data. It doesn't try and do anything else. It just takes where this moves, and that's it, and these background points. In a way that can be better, because that's all it does is focus on this, but when you need to get a virtual camera out and this sort of thing, it's not really helpful. So we go into Motion Builder, which if you're a student with Autodesk like I am, then you can download Motion Builder 2000. I'm in 2011 here. You can download this for free and play with it as long as you don't make money off it. So there's quite a few things you can do, and I'm sure some people have found other ways of getting this software, but we always pay for it. So we're going to go to File, Motion File Import. Open doesn't work, and Import Video doesn't work, so don't try and do any of them. Motion File Import. We're going to go back to our desktop, to our tutorial folder, and we're going to go to motion.trc. We're going to open this, and this is going to ask us, what frame rate is it on, and how many frames is it, which it's gotten right, and does it bring this in on a new take, or does it take it in on an existing take. So we'll import this in. So as you can see, again, you can set the keyboard layout to be standard Maya controls in the 2012 stuff, which in fairness has made working with different software packages from Autodesk has made it quite nice in a way that it's so versatile to go between software now. Although in Softimage you have a lot's changed, but when it comes to the keyboard shortcuts, it's not quite the same work speed. But so we've brought it in here, and this has given us some, it's given us our data is moving. We like it. Now, for those of you who've used Motion Builder, it's good. You can do things off of a lot of motion capture stuff in here, and it is very nice to use. Other people will probably hate it because it has got a tendency to crash and die quite a bit, but still, it does the job when you need it to. And for what it is powerful enough. But we're only using this for one reason, and the reason I would recommend using this is because if we go back to MatchMover, pretty much the most important uh, bit of file extension in here that it doesn't let you export as is .c3d, which is a Vicon file export file type, which a lot of programs use a lot and need really. C3D is pretty much the safest and the best way of storing tracked moving data. So it is a pain having to export from MatchMover as a .trc into Motion Builder, and then we're going to motion file export again. So it can become quite tedious having to go through all of this. And so I'm just going to make a new folder and call this C3D data. Again, keep things in folders because when you have hundreds of files, it does get confusing. So we'll call this version 01. And it's going to ask what it wants you to export. And I want all of that, so I'm going to export the whole thing. It does it very quickly. So I can now shut this, and I'll pick the video up again in the next bit. Okay, so the next part of this is taking our C3D data that we just saved out of Motion Builder, and we're going to bring it into Softimage. This will take a minute or two to open. If it does open, there it goes. And again, I'm in 2012 just because I'm a student and I don't have to pay for the software, so it's nice to have, well, everything really. It is very nice. Come on. It will open in a second. There we go. Right. Now the really important thing with Softimage is Face Robot. And if you don't know what Face Robot is, YouTube it or Google it. It's a very, very clever thing that ships with Softimage, with XSI, and it basically is, it's good facial tracking. It takes you through a step-by-step thing of assembly to go through, and it's just asking you to pick things on here. So pick your upper teeth, pick the lower teeth, pick the tongue, and after that, you tell it to assemble, and it'll it pretty much is very quick to rig a face. I'll tell it it's asymmetric, so it's not the same, and then pretty much it asks you to go through, and it basically just teaches you how to. It just rigs for you. But the difference between this and Maya is this: when you bring in your C3D data to this, it takes the nose tip, the ears, and the forehead markers or the eyebrow markers. If you have tracked the forehead, you can use them, but it takes that as global movement, and what it will do is it will leave the neck. Pretty much the neck won't move very much apart from what's tracked by the neck tendons and the Adam's apple and the under of the chin if you can track it. But what that means is when your actor leans towards the camera, the neck will bend forward rather than just pulling the eyebrows off the face, which is helpful. So let's just take us back to the Softimage layout, and I don't want to do any face roll stuff anymore. Let's just delete that. Right. So we want to bring in our C3D data to, we're going to use it for whatever reason we need to use it in here. So again, this is as simple as just file open, or if you're already on a scene, you need to bring it in file import, and we'll take it into our desktop, which is into tutorial and C3D data. And okay, I do need to import it. It's not going to let me do it that way. And again, like I said, I've only just started using Softimage, so for me this is a bit of a pain because I don't really know how it works. I've tried, it just confuses me. Okay, well, one way I know how to bring the data into here if we needed it is we go over to mocap, under the face robot layout, we go under mocap, and we go load C3D, and we're going to go to our, where are we, go to our, no, go away, go to our desktop, our tutorial C3D data, and what you can see here is when I said from Motion Builder we're going to export everything, what Motion Builder does is it works on, as you would in a real film, take 1, take 2, take 3. So under this drop down, you can have multiple takes. When it comes to exporting, if the same data is on more than one take, it'll ask you, how many of them you want to how many of them you want to take out. So I'm just going to use the Motion C3D one because that's the one I saved. The take 001 is the Motion Builder part that came out. I want the data that I saved. It's exactly the same size. It was made 2 seconds later, but that's the one I saved, so that's the one I want to use. So I'll click OK and open that. So now hopefully in here somewhere, which sometimes can be a bit of a, there he is, nightmare defined, is our data. Let's see, which way around is our data? It is that way around. So we'll do our, don't know what that is. We'll do our playback options and make it and in 50 frames a second, because that's what I shot in. If you're in 24, so it's 24, 25 or 60, 100, whatever you filmed in, and tell it to play back real time, and we'll play it through, and we've got our movement in, which is really nice. One thing that you've probably noticed is when this comes into Softimage out of Motion Builder C3D data, it doesn't come in as these little locators anymore. It comes in as these giant balls, which is not a problem, but I don't understand why it does it or why it needs to do it. But our 3 background references are massive, so I can delete them because I don't want them. So then when they come out of Motion Builder C3D data into Softimage or into anything, they come out as these giant balls. The scaling is the same. The scaling is standard mile 1, standard auto, like the basic 1.00, which I found hardly changes between software packages, but for some reason Motion Builder is big. But the movement's the same. The coordinate changes are the same. So it's not really a massive problem. And then you can use this by going through and doing everything you need to do for Softimage for Face Robot to work. But really this tutorial is just showing how you can use the data in different ways and get into different software packages. I don't think I actually have any other software packages to get it into, really. I don't, nope. No. Okay, so that's basically what you can do, and that's how to how to successfully get track data out of MatchMover as different data formats to use in different programs. A lot of people seem to hate this, but I would say give MatchMover a go because it is powerful, and I do use Buju as well as any other like PF track. I use I use different programs, and I find MatchMover one of the most versatile things to use. And again, it's a personal preference thing, and I'm sure there will be people that will say that you should use Buju because it's the best, and you should use someone else because it's better. But I like this. It does what I need it to do, and it does it relatively easy. And yes, it was the first one I learned, and it's the one I'm most accustomed to. But it's for me. It's what I like. But if you don't like it, use a different software package, and you might like that better. But this is how to do it in MatchMover. And just remember to get don't leave your tracks red. Let your tracks be a nice green colour, and then everything will be fine. Well, I hope this has been helpful to anybody, and I hope someone will see this and think, God, I've been looking at this for ages, but maybe not. But anyway, enjoy. Cheers.